Hi there. Today I wanted to do a video in follow-up as I've had many questions coming in from the previous videos, which are great questions and I really appreciate all of them. But another common theme that keeps coming through is the question around how someone who hasn't had a near-death experience can realize some of the things that are discussed in these videos. I think really an answer to that is that this is all happening. It's just happening. There is no doer here. And if you watch the video that I made called No Doership, you'll recognize that the mind gets caught in a trap, especially when you hear someone else's experience, which is why I hesitated for a long time in sharing my own experience. We all have had this occasion to stumble upon someone who shares something, and instantly within us there's this, I want that, or I wish I had that. And what happens is we're immediately in duality because we're comparing or we're expecting something. As soon as we're saying I want, there is this knowing that it's not here, which is separation. The reality is we are all pure consciousness. All of us are pure consciousness. We are all built or comprised of the same thing. We are conditioned from a young age to believe that we are in this place of duality, and so we look out and we see this other apparent story of let's call someone Bob, and Bob standing in front of me, and Bob is appearing as a physical separate entity than me, and so instantly I now have comparisons. I'm smarter than Bob, I smell better than Bob, I'm less hairy than Bob, hopefully. And what happens is the mind believes that and builds off of that. And if you go back to the video about why we incarnate, I discussed this quite a bit in that video. We are here for experience. The illusion is separation. The illusion is that I'm in a physical body and therefore I am separate from Bob. And in that illusion, in that belief structure, I can compare things and have contrast, but at the same time I'm immediately creating this belief so that Bob is not me. Bob is separate from me. There is no way to tell you to experience this. Anything that I say, any word that I say that is pointing to something for you to do, to have an experiential occurrence of this, is leading you away from your truth, because you are experience, you are consciousness. So there are all these beautiful teachings out there: clear your mind, meditate, be one with the self, go within. They all hold a truth in them, absolutely. Yet again, the mind can get very busy in thinking that there is something that the doer must do. So if the teaching were, go and sit quietly for 10 minutes and I promise you, you will experience what I'm sharing here. Immediately you would get off the computer, you would go sit down, and you would start trying to do something. You're not a human doing, you're a human being. There's nothing that you need to do but breathe and not resist. This is all mapped already. Remember that. So the desire to have an experiential realization is saying it's not here. Simply by holding a desire, saying, I want that. I hear other people having something that I don't have. Each time you point to something saying they have it and I don't, you're creating that separation. Yet you are always this. You are always this. You are always all of it. There is no lacking in this except in the mind. And the mind creates that duality and starts going into the contrast and having expectations and comparisons. As soon as we're comparing ourselves to others, we're in suffering. I wish I were thinner. I wish I had longer hair. I wish I was a brunette. I wish I had brown eyes. Comparing, comparing, comparing. You are consciousness. You're all of this. You're God. You're the energy of all of this united as one. Yes, I know that sounds very trite, and it sounds like I'm just throwing blah, blah, blah words out there, and especially for someone who is just starting to taste the experience of this and feeling like they want to go further quickly. Again, all of that being an illusion that there's somewhere to go and at some speed. We have little glimpses of this perfection and this unitingness with all that we are. Even in my near-death experience, after that happened, as I mentioned in my videos, for several weeks afterwards, I was at a heightened vibration, and that slowly balanced out. Slowly some balance came to that. And after that balance came, there was a part of this human being, known as Kelly, who craved that initial high vibration. And I tell people it's almost like, although I've never done heroin, but what I hear heroin addicts talk about is that first high. And you'll ask someone who's a heroin addict if they're getting high because it feels good. And after a while, no, they're not doing it because it feels good anymore. They're doing it because the body requires it to not feel bad. But ultimately what they're trying to do is re-experience that very, very first high. That very, very first time that they used heroin. So people who have what I refer to as instant awakenings or instant experiences of recognition that they've always been enlightened, because we are always enlightened. There's no getting there. There's no destination to enlightenment. We are always enlightenment. We're constantly trying to shed this need to look around to find enlightenment. But people who have kind of an instant awakening, if you will, for lack of a better word to describe it, are often trying to re-seek that initial awakening experience. So you'll hear people who have had near-death experiences chasing that. They'll practice for years and years to have an out-of-body experience. They'll read all the Monroe books. They'll join groups where they're trying to have out-of-body experiences. They'll join groups where they're trying to learn to astral travel. And they're seeking. And in that seeking, they're doing. And in that doing, it's like a dog chasing its tail. The dog has always been the dog. And the tail has always been connected. But in the seeking of that tail, often the dog doesn't even recognize that it is that. Seeking can become an addiction in itself. Go buy every spiritual book, read every spiritual guru's work, and then try and recreate what they say. One of the most beautiful writings was an autobiography of Yogananda. And Yogananda goes very specifically into many of his awakening experiences, things that happened in his physical body, things that he saw, things that he experienced. They're all beautiful writings, and yet if I, in my experience of Kelly, pick that book up, read a chapter of what Yogananda experienced, set it down, and then try to attain that for myself, I'm reaching again for something that's outside of me, that was always me. We are like a mirror. We never see our own reflection. We are all of this. So every time we're pointing to try and find something, know that if you can point to it, it's a lie. It's not real. There is no need to chase this. These videos are not being shared for you to try and become something other than what you are. You're perfect. There's nothing you need to do. This is all mapped. Even you watching this video right in this moment, right now, whatever is going on around you, there may be some belief that you made a choice to turn this video on. And that, gosh, I'm glad I watched it today. What if I hadn't seen it? Well, that wouldn't have been an option. It just wouldn't have. It's why we've all had that experience of going to maybe buy a book, walking into Barnes & Noble and going to grab a book off the shelf, and there's a book right next to it that somehow speaks to us. So we buy both of them, and we go home and we start reading the one that spoke to us, And that was exactly the book we needed in that moment. And we think, oh, what a coincidence. Oh, what a great, great serendipity. I assure you, there are no coincidences. That book was there exactly as intended. You picked it up on the date and the time and the moment and the space, in the store, in the city, whatever, as intended. This thought that you can do something to experientially create the things that I'm speaking about for yourself is saying that you don't already have it. It's saying it's not already part of you in your stream of consciousness. And that is just not the case. I speak about people wanting to obtain this. I want to attain enlightenment. I want to attain psychic abilities. I want to attain consciousness. It's not about getting anything. It's about shedding everything that's blocking you from believing you already have it. And even the thought that you can shed is just a thought. This is all just happening. Breathe and don't resist. Love what's arising and know that your soul mapped this beautifully and perfectly. You are and always have been perfection. You are and always have been enlightened. The thought that it is something outside of you to seek, that you must breathe a certain way and you must meditate a certain way and you must sit in a chair with your head turned to the right for 4 minutes and then turn it to the left for 4 minutes, whatever it is. I don't mean to mock it, but you have to find the irony and the hilarity once the knowing comes that you've always been it. You've always been it. Remember the scene from The Matrix. I don't remember the characters' names. I know some people can call them off. I think it's Nemo, maybe. Walks into the room of the psychic, and there's a child sitting on the floor with a spoon floating in the air, and the spoon is bending. And he says to the child, "How did you bend the spoon?" And the child very casually looks at him and says, "I didn't bend anything. There is no spoon." That is what this whole illusion is here, this life. It's a grasping at something. It's a trying to do something to, trying to become something that you've always been. You are all of it. Go back to the video on why we incarnate. It's one of the segments in here, and it really explains it. You are all of it. You're everything. You're all of this. So what would you need to reach out to get? I hope that helps. I'm sure there will be more questions on this, but as I had several on the same topic, I figured this would be the next segment that I would do. And I am still slowly going through questions. There have been some tremendous, beautiful ones, and I'm just doing them a little at a time. So be patient with me and know that I will get to your questions in due time. Okay? Until next time, love to you all.